everyone. The meeting has been called back to regular session. If everybody would stand and join me in a moment of silence for Michelle Wink. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. At this time, we will move to the superintendent's report, and I will turn it over to Dr. Buak. Come over here.
Sir, here.
Not in this room.
Your voice projects well.
That's well documented then, right?
Yep, looks that way. Yep.
Do we have anybody that address the call?
That's the horn they sign when I'm coming.
I'm sorry.
Up in the presentation.
No one for the floor to the public.
At least it's not like womp womp.
It's true.
Could be a lot worse.
It could be worse. All
Both
right.
sides are one.
I can't believe it's April 17th already,
I can.
but it is. Yeah?
Yes.
Good.
I can't
Yep.
because the weather doesn't reflect that.
Nancy, are you running this?
Can you tell?
Yep.
Okay.
No, I'm fine, I just had, I can run it from my seat.
So just to kind of remind folks, the way that we rolled the budget out this year is very similar to the way that we rolled the budget out last year, and that's with the three independent component parts of the budget. The only real difference this year is that the third component part, the instructional part, we rolled out a week ago at the budget workshop for the board, which was a public meeting. Some people were in attendance. And that's at that point, we rolled out the financials and the proposed instructional budget, as well as what the bottom line figure was. And then after that, we went back and did some work based on some requests from the board to see certain numbers, certain ways, a percentage here, a percentage there, what's the impact on the levy. And then the board came back together on, is it Thursday or Friday? Thursday morning.
Thursday.
We had another open public presentation, which gave some additional options. And we finalized the budget that we're putting forth tonight. The board, as you know, will adopt the budget tonight, and then in 2 weeks will be the public hearing on the budget that we proposed tonight. So the three component parts of the budget, as you know, are administrative, capital, and program, and we rolled them out. I believe we started with capital, then we went to administrative, and then program. Program is a comprehensive part that includes most of our instructional programs and staffing and things like that. So tonight we're gonna do a quick review of all three component parts of the budget. Then we're gonna talk about what the finances look like, not only our revenues, but what the expenditures are with add-ons and some other things that we've added programmatically and with staffing. And then finally, what that final number will look like in terms of what the budget figure is and what the impact on the local share might be. So the first thing we'll look at is really the total administrative budget. For the other component parts, we're going to share the total capital and the total instructional part, but then we'll break it up into the component parts that are part of those budgets as well. But for administrative, we're just showing you a side-by-side comparison of the 17-18 budget and the budget that's being proposed, so current year that we're in and the year that we're looking at next year. And you've seen these presentations before. Some numbers may have changed where we've moved some figures around to put them in budget lines that more accurately reflect the area that should be. And one example would be in the instructional portion under equipment. And some of you remember that we set aside $100,000 to create a cyclical furniture replacement program for our district moving forward for classrooms. But on this slide, you're going to see that there's an increase in salaries in the administrative budget, $141,000 or 4%. An increase in equipment this is one example actually, this line, that 10.5 to 20,000. That was the 120 in our last presentation, but we moved that $100,000 for the furniture replacement to another portion of the budget that you'll see later, so it more accurately reflects where it should belong. Contractual, 5% increase. BOCES increases certainly. If you go back up to salaries, some of the things that you would see in that $141,000 increase would be some reflective figures from collective bargaining. You're going to see some new additions in this budget in a little bit because we're going to outline instructional and staffing additions. And two of those would be the possibility of a second school resource officer in our district and also 2 administrative interns. Under BOCES, if you look at that line, you can see that there's a 10% increase in our BOCES line. 60% of that increase is our WADA portion of the BOCES administrative budget. So overall, our total administrative budget proposal is 6%. This is the snapshot of the capital portion of the budget, and we'll go through each of these sections separately. But under the total capital budget, hi Jenny, again, a side-by-side from our current year's budget and what's being proposed for next year. Under facilities and maintenance, you're going to see decreases in this department, although you're going to see later that we've had an increased staff member, as well as some other things in our buildings and grounds budget. But there is a decrease under facilities and maintenance. Also, there's an increase in debt service, and debt service is something that we proposed pretty inclusively, talked about pretty inclusively a few weeks ago. But there's a 10% decrease in debt service, and as we've talked about so much recently, our debts are falling off, and we're going to show a slide that describes that a little bit better. So under facilities and maintenance, salaries, you're going to see an increase of 4%. Some of those are reflective of collective bargaining, and some of that is also reflective of the fact that we have made a proposal for the addition of one groundskeeper in that department. So there's an FTE built into that percentage. Under equipment, you see a significant decrease from 238 in 17-18 to 85,000. 85,000 is a number that we're comfortable with, that we need to improve and purchase new equipment. But the main reason for that reduction is that most of you will recall that last year we did a purchase of some vehicles. So last year's equipment budget line under the facilities and maintenance was escalated because we knew that we wanted to purchase those vehicles, which we did. So there's a 64% reduction in the equipment line under facilities and maintenance. Contractual, we believe that we're trending low. We know that we're trending low, so our trend data is showing that we're doing well with gas and electrical costs, so we are budgeting a little bit lower for contractual under gas and electric. And also you can see a small increase of 24,818 under BOCES, and you might wonder what does BOCES have to do with facilities and maintenance. We actually contract through BOCES for our safety and risk management services. So that falls under that, and so there's an increase in our contract for our safety and risk management. That's the Patty serial work, and so there's shows a 9% increase there, and just a small increase for supplies. But overall, you can see the decrease in facilities maintenance portion of that budget is down 3%. The next section of that portion of the budget is debt service. You can see a decrease in both of these lines. Certainly, if you see a decrease in your principal, you're going to see a decrease in interest. And as you all know from your home budgets, when your principal decreases, your interest rate also decreases more, because we all front load our interest and we pay the bank first, and we're getting into some better times relative to our debt service. But we always have to be careful that we maintain a debt service that keeps our debt level. So overall, we're down 10% in debt service. The next slide is our overall program budget, and we'll also break this out into instructional, athletic, transportation, and benefits. The side-by-side from 17-18 shows us that based on some collective bargaining and the addition of some new instructional positions that we'll outline in a minute, we're up about 7% in the instructional line for this budget. Under athletics, you see an increase of 30,000 or 4%. We'll also talk about those items, and we have in previous presentations as well. Under transportation, there's a decrease because we're trending really well for fuel. So we're budgeting about $115,000 less for this year for transportation costs relative to fuel.
And what makes up the $1 million increase in the instructional? Are those salaries positions or are they?
Salaries,
programs, or-
salaries and all the new positions that we put in at the last workshop.
Okay.
Yep, and we're gonna show them all, Sam.
Plus the additional. Okay.
Mhm. We'll show them specifically what the FTEs are that we added in.
Mhm.
So overall, an increase of 3% in our total program budget. Within the total program budget, you have salaries, equipment, contractual, BOCES, supplies, and instructional. And you can see salary increase of 1.9 because of collective bargaining. Again, that's the same new positions. Now I'm breaking it out into smaller component parts. Under equipment, we have a significant increase of, is that right, 230%, 34%? Oh, that's quite a, no, it didn't look right when I glanced at it. As you recall, we talked about creating a cyclical replacement of classroom furniture. It's something our district hasn't done in a long, long time. Some principals have replaced classroom furniture through their building budgets over the years, but we really need to make a commitment to creating teaching and learning spaces that are better. And we have some deteriorating equipment in classrooms, and that was illustrated quite well in some of the building tours where schools were showing the types of furnitures that we're using that were enhancing the ability for today's types of students to sit comfortably and to learn best. So we're proposing $100,000 to be built into this budget, and now it falls under the equipment line under the instructional component of the budget. Under contractual, $191,000 increase. That just as an example of what types of things fall under contractual under the instructional budget would be our Pemberton program, our Pemberton contract that we use to pay for occupational therapy and physical therapy services for students. So those types of things are embedded in there. Our BOCES increase about 36,000 or 1%, and then a decrease in supplies.
Is the contractual specific to just Pemberton, or is there more than that in that contractual?
There are more, Jim, but
Okay.
that's a pretty big ticket item, and
Is it?
that's one that most people recognize.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know it's a big
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
I understand.
Can we
Yeah.
back up one slide,
Sure.
please?
Yeah.
Just have a quick question. On the equipment, we said we added 100,000, right?
Mhm.
So the previous 2018, 2017, 2018 budget, wouldn't we just add the 100,000 to 61,000?
Yeah, there's more in there, Brand. I think what you're asking, Brandon, is that the math doesn't add up.
Correct.
100,000 of that 144 increase is for that furniture replacement, but then there's some other things too.
Okay.
There are other things in there. It's not just bad math, but I'm just giving examples. And because 100 is a big ticket, and we talked about it previously.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out.
But the 100 is specific to the replacement program, and then there's another 40,
There's other
45
equipment-
for something.
Yeah, there's other equipment built in there
Okay,
as well.
very good.
Yeah, but
Thank
100
you.
of the 144 is classroom furniture.
Right,
Thank
to
you.
reestablish that program.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, good, thank you.
Yeah. Now we're gonna look at the
Sorry.
component parts of this of the budget portion I just shared. First one is salaries. I've talked a lot about collective bargaining. There's some impact there. We're adding some new coaches that you'll see in a few minutes when we break down the athletic. Well, we've actually talked about unified sports. We're also adding some other teams that you're gonna see in a subsequent slide. We're also proposing some nurse hours that are needed for our unified sports program that we're rolling out this week. And some coaches that we are proposing for those new teams. Under equipment, there's a $7,800 increase, or 64%, and that's because there's been a request by the athletic director to purchase some replacement or new equipment for the weight room. So that's embedded in there. Also under contractual, there's a slight increase of $2,400. The officials union for New York State Public School Athletics Association just settled their collective bargaining agreement, so this type of money does pay for officials' fees and also equipment reconditioning. And a slight decrease in supplies. So our overall increase in the athletic budget is 4%. The next portion of that would be transportation. A slight increase in salaries based on CB. Equipment, you see a huge decrease in equipment. Last year we built a $70,000 budget line in equipment to purchase the radio system that we've talked about so much that are actually being installed in our buses currently, right now. That's a system that we talked to the board about last year in purchasing. So now we will have a designated channel where our buses are not only going to be able to communicate back to back, but also to the base and also to the buildings. So that's why there's a significant decrease of 86% under the equipment line for transportation. Also a decrease in the contractual line for fuel, a reduction of 10%, and also a reduction in their supply line of 7%. So overall, our transportation budget is down 4%.
Dean, I think it's important to mention that part of the reason supplies are down because we've kept our bus fleet up to date and new buses.
That's a really good point.
The maintenance is so much less, so
Yeah.
we're buying less parts.
Our supplies are down because of that. Also, it impacts staffing in the long term. Right now, we have adequate mechanics to do general maintenance on our buses, to do the required inspections, brake work, to troubleshoot when drivers come in and are having a problem. So we think we're adequately staffed with
We're adequate,
mechanics.
and we've reduced that.
Yeah.
We've reduced mechanics.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because we have created a nearly,
Maintenance free.
it's just a maintenance-free fleet. We have a really great bus fleet,
Yeah.
and
Plus they
that's
get
where
more
it's
efficient.
it's just reflected in the budget because we're becoming more efficient. And that's a result of the community being very supportive over the last several years, because we put into place a cyclical replacement system for the replacement of our buses, which we're doing again, and I'll talk about that in a minute, that we're asking the community to support again the purchase of new additional buses so that we can retire our aging fleet and sell them at auction to recoup some money. And we're hopeful that the community will continue to support that, because it's what has got us in the condition that we're in right now relative to our bus fleet. Benefits under this portion, ERS and TRS, you can see an increase. That's something that we anticipate annually is about 13% based on trend data. Our health insurance shows a decrease. We've been trending quite well, but this is a budget line that we're going to have to watch very carefully. Because we're self-insured, a few high-cost claims can really set this line askew. But we're hopeful, based on the trend data that we're looking at, that a budget of 14.3 for health insurance for next year, if things continue to go well and our staff continue to be healthy, that we'll be okay in that budget line at a reduction of 7%. Our workers' compensation is stable, and our Social Security and Medicare, we anticipate an increase of $164,000, which is 6% increase. Medicare Part B, a slight increase of more than slight, 10%. And then a reduction of $70,350 for other, and that would be things like dental and vision. We've negotiated in collective bargain with bargaining units to create some dental and vision options that created some savings for our district and still provide a great level of care for our employees. So the good news, the instructional staff additions that are built into this budget, we proposed 2 additional administrative interns. And it's no surprise to anybody that children are different than they were 10 years ago, and building administrators are working really hard. And I shared a desire last year to create some administrative intern positions that would be annual. And one would be shared between middle and high school, and the other would be elementary, which is unique. We have a lot of professionals in our community, in our school community, that are all ABI, if you will. They are all but internship. They have all their coursework required for a degree or a CAS in educational administration, but internships are very hard to find. So this is an opportunity to cultivate leadership within our ranks and to help our teacher leaders get to the checkered flag relative to their administrative training. So we're proposing 1 elementary administrative intern that will spend 1 day each in each of the 5 elementary schools to help with discipline with extreme behaviors, to learn administrative practices around management, as well as interacting with parents, building schedules, planning for testing, and it will really provide a lot of relief for our administrators across all 7 schools. We're also proposing the reinstatement of the 4 team leaders at the Oswego Middle School in the cores of Social Studies, Science, Math, and ELA. We're proposing a reading coach model. As you know, that this year we've started an elementary literacy task force that has spilled across the county. We're taking a critical look at our philosophy around elementary literacy instruction. We know that the current research calls for a more phonics-based approach in K through 2 and a more holistic reading, writing, balanced literacy approach in 3 through 6. And reading coaches are the trend across central New York and the country in high-achieving school districts with literacy. Those will be reading coaches that aren't replacing reading teachers, but they're supplementing our intervention programs. They're going to provide in-classroom coaching and opportunities to roll out our new initiatives in literacy. We're proposing a behavioral coach, and that is a teacher that has an expertise in behavioral management. That person will work across our district not only with students who may have IEPs, but also students who are regular education students but are struggling with some trauma. As you know, that's aligned to our district vision in our CDEP, and to support teachers and principals dealing with students that are unlucky. 3 teaching assistants. What?
Did you say students that are unlucky?
Yeah, it's a term that we're starting to use, Sam, around students who have trauma and are bringing things to school that help them, that really prohibits them from learning and behaving. So you'll start to hear us using that term a little bit. It's the Ross Green work, which is the model of student management and interventions for students with extreme behaviors that we're moving toward in our comprehensive district educational plan.
Would this coach be assisting teachers with behavioral problems? With just
Exactly what they're going to do. Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. 3 teaching assistants. We're doing a lot of restructuring around our teaching. As you know, we've spent quite a bit of work at Minetto. We're trying to relieve the pressure at Minetto over the years since I left Minetto for a whole host of reasons, not because I was great there, but because we've had a couple different principals, several changes in the director of special education position, as well as different principals. And over time, the level of special education became too broad at Minetto. And we've been working a lot this year to get the structure at Minetto back to the way it was, because you can't be great at everything. And we have too many different levels on the full spectrum of education, special education at Minetto. And so we're starting to remove students, and with that, we're removing some staff. So some people are being reassigned, but when the dust settles, Lisa believes and the principals believe that there's still a need for 3 additional teaching assistants under the special ed umbrella, and we propose those for the budget. As you know, and we've talked about so often, students and families have changed significantly across our community and across the country, certainly in Oswego County, and the work that's being done at Fitzhugh Park is phenomenal. The current existing instructional staff and administration at Fitzhugh Park does a really, really great job with very little complaining. But I think we all agreed that there's a need for an additional guidance counselor at Fitzhugh Park School, and that's in the budget. Similarly, the work that's being done at the Oswego High School, I guess I'll get there in a minute. 1 additional 6th grade teacher. We did some right sizing around elementary FTEs a few years ago. We dug kind of deep. There were 10 FTEs in elementary cut in the 16-17 budget. We reinstated some last year. We anticipated reinstating some additional elementary teachers, but now we feel that we're in a pretty good place with elementary classroom sections, with the exception of the incoming 6th grade at Fitzhugh Park next year. So we're proposing 1 6th grade teacher at Fitzhugh Park. I got ahead of myself. So now we're at the top bullet on this slide. The need for professionals to work with students with social, emotional, and developmental health needs at Oswego High School is significant. We have some great staff now, and we contract with some other staff to help work with students who are struggling with their social emotional development. We have a great guidance team, but we need some additional work with social work. We need someone that can work with students and families that are struggling so that we can enhance their educational experience and get them to the checkered flag. So we're proposing an additional social worker at OHS. 1 art teacher to be shared between Oswego Middle School and High School. 1 instructional technology specialist. Right now we contract with BOCES, and we have 2 part-time instructional technology specialists. We don't think we're getting the bang for our buck, don't write that in the article. But we do believe that we can tap some talent within or outside our district that will help us better service the needs of teachers in classrooms. And we want to have an instructional technology specialist to put the emphasis back on technology integration in classrooms, and helping teachers and kids become proficient with their technology needs. Jamie agrees with that, and Jamie and the cabinet level administrators came together, and certainly the principals are excited about that. One strength and conditioning coach during the summer at least at the Oswego High School to help support the development of our student athletes. One boys modified volleyball coach. I've been talking for the last few years about the fact that we need to enhance our volleyball program. It's a high-performing program in our district, and yet we don't have a feeder group at the boys level in terms of a modified volleyball team right now. We're adding that to the budget. And the need for a boys modified assistant swim coach.
I just have one question
Yes.
about the, so the boys modified volleyball coach, would that be a combined 7-8 team then? So it's not
Yeah,
seventh
it'd be
grade,
one
grade,
team,
one team,
right.
okay.
And we may find, Amy, in next year's budget, because I think we fully anticipate this turnout will be great, that maybe we would have to move to, you know, AB or 7-8 or something like that.
Is there girls on it? Yeah, there is girls on it,
Yes,
right, all right,
we already
right.
have
Yep.
that.
And do we
And the
know
turnout's
which
unbelievable.
winter, like what winter session, 1 or 2 that was run this year? What?
I think it's winter one.
I think it's winter one.
Yeah.
Mhm. I asked that question
So
last
then
week.
that would compete with boys basketball?
I don't know, you're way out of my
Well, that's not.
expert area.
Hmm.
I don't, Ron's usually here, but I
Yeah.
can get that, I can get that.
Yeah, that would be a concern. 'cause
Well, they'll compete where the other Section 3 modified boys compete. We
Right.
don't have a lot of probably control over it. Yeah. Do you know, Brian?
I don't know, I mean, they made cuts this year for basketball, so they certainly have.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of cuts.
Okay.
My question is, going back to the swimming one, did we determine if that's,
I forgot. As soon as we got into this, I thought, oh, darn it, I meant to talk to Rhonda about
I
it.
did.
Did you?
I
Okay.
did talk to Rhonda. It is co-ed,
Okay.
but the reason it has to stay boys modified assistant swimming, it has to do with the regulations from.
Title IX.
Title IX.
No, not Title
Okay, so
IX, from the
second.
division.
Okay.
What's the?
What's the
Section
athletic
3.
division? we're in?
Section 3, thank you. Has to do with
You're
Section 3.
welcome.
Okay.
Is
I
that
just
the
didn't know
same
what number
reason
we are
for the
anymore.
unified teams, because they're listed as boys' teams as well, even though, it was my understanding they were co-ed?
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
the
the
same?
rule
I
in
don't know,
Section
Jen,
3
that's a
is
good question.
guys or girls can compete in boys' sports,
Mhm.
but boys can't compete in girls' sports.
Aha.
Right.
Because that's
There you
what,
go.
for like co-ed teams for the varsity level,
Mhm.
they're all under as boys' teams even though they're co-ed.
There you go.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Drop the mic down.
Go by your head.
There you go. Very good.
Okay. Support staff additions, as I referenced before, we're proposing an additional grounds worker. As you know, we added an HVAC person and another
Senior maintenance.
senior maintenance worker. No. Ian's job, what's it called?
Senior
Senior.
maintenance.
Senior maintenance.
Senior, like I said, senior maintenance.
Adding
worker.
another one?
No, I said we did, and now we're adding a grounds worker.
He would be a, maintenance worker, then senior.
Yeah,
Starts out as maintenance.
No,
Yeah.
that's not how it happens.
he's a senior maintenance worker, Sam.
I mean, you start out as a maintenance worker, then you become a
That's the
senior
way it
maintenance.
used to be.
It's changed now?
We
If you
could, we
move
could
up
talk
from-
later
If
if
you
you'd
move up
like.
from within the organization, that may be true.
Okay.
Yep.
Explain that to me, Jimmy.
The addition of 5 library clerks. This is a reinstatement from cuts 2 years ago. You know, remember that last year we added 1 elementary library clerk that spends 1 day a week in each school, and we've been hearing loud and clear that we needed more, so 5 additional library clerks. 1 unified sports nurse. There's a need because of some of the students' IEPs that if they're gonna be involved in unified sports, that there are occasions when we're gonna need to bring a nurse in hourly to support the needs of that particular child.
Are the library clerks full-time also?
They're back to the level that they were.
Thank you.
Yes, originally. one school resource officer, and we're not sure how this is gonna look exactly. I've already talked to the mayor about this. And we're looking at some grant funding. I just wanted him to be on notice that we may be reaching out to the OPD for an additional younger or school resource officer, because that would mean that they would be hiring someone as well. Program additions. The addition of 5 new vision slots in our CTE program additions, 10 additional credit accrual slots, or a program that's called CARE. That's the Robin Proud program. And 5 Project Explore slots to be shared between Oswego High School and Oswego Middle School. Other additions. Not unlike classroom furniture, we've been negligent in replacing large ticket musical instruments for our music program across the district. And so the first check mark is musical instrument replacement. That's $20,000. Next is theater. There's a control board that needs to be replaced in the Oswego High School Theater, $8,000. The furniture replacement that I've talked about a few times already, $100,000. Equipment for the weight room has a loose ticket price that right now is of around $12,000. And then also a need to increase in staff supervision at games. We're putting money in the budget to increase staff supervision and create a system where staff can work at the supervision of high-intensity games at an hourly stipend.
So will this be all games or just certain
Some
games?
Yeah, high-intensity, high volume
Okay.
spectator sports.
What kind of,
Yeah.
is it okay to ask a question?
Yeah, I may not have the
How will
answer.
that look as far as what type of staffing that will be? You know, are they like security, or are they
They wouldn't really be
anybody that applies? I
security.
mean, what's the criteria?
Heidi, you want to jump into that?
So this past year, we offered our 2 security officers the overtime opportunities, but just for scheduling purposes, they're not always available. So Rhonda had posted for faculty and possibly staff who were interested in attending certain games, football, hockey, basketball, volleyball, and act in an official capacity. So we had a little money budgeted for that this year, and we want to make sure that we have enough next year to handle, because sometimes the security officers aren't able to attend, and it kind of falls on Rhonda and the appropriate school administrator, but there's a lot of conflicts with scheduling, and not everyone can be everywhere at once.
Right.
Anything on this?
Yeah, in addition to that, when Rhonda rolled out her plan, she wanted to use faculty because they know the students and they're quite visible to the students. So that's why she had said that she wanted to use faculty. She also has a replacement, or not a replacement, but a schedule where she asked for volunteers for this. Well, not volunteers because they're paid, but she asked for people to sign up for certain games. So she knows who's going to be at the games at any given time. But we still use our security first, and they have the first option for any game. But over the past 2 to 3 years, they're not taking the overtime that they used to take.
Is the cost offset by the admission that is charged at the door for these sports?
No, what do you mean
The cost for the
I know there are certain games where people are charged admission, not all games, but certain games. So I was wondering if that was helping to offset the
No,
the cost.
we've done that for years, collected tickets at the games. That just goes into our general fund. It's not used to offset any expenditure.
Thank you.
So on the revenue side, the next few slides show our revenues and also our expenditures and boil it down to what our budget really becomes this year. On the revenue side, the 17, 18, 18, 19 comparison, you can see that our revenues start with property taxes certainly, and we're proposing a decrease of 3%, or just over $1 million in property taxes. Our pilot agreements, and Nancy has a handout, I don't know if you passed, did you?
Karen passed it out
Okay.
earlier.
Our pilots, as you know, have been decreasing. We've been talking about that for many years as we've been building the budgets. And there's a decrease in our pilots of 5% for next year, of a little over $1 million. We were very fortunate this year to get an increase in state aid. A lot of it was BOCES aid, but some foundation aid as well, of about $6 million. Some other revenues are declining, some rents at the old ed center and things like that. So we've lost a little bit of other revenue, but we still bring in quite a bit of other revenue, a decrease of about 1%. And then the next row is the most important one to point out, and that's an increase in the use of our fund balance. And you'll remember that last year we used $4.3 million in combination of reserves and fund balance that had been untouched from the previous budget. They were built in to the, I guess that would have been the 15-16 budget, and went largely untouched. And so when those reserves and fund balances became available, we built them into last year's budget. So that's why you see $1.4 million in fund balance and $2.9 million in reserves in the 17-18 budget. Those monies did get spent this year, however. So what we're proposing is the use of $1.7 million in fund balance from the 17-18 budget be applied to the 18-19 budget. Of that $1.7 million, $865,000 go toward program staffing additions, the things that I've already talked about, program staffing additions. The balance of that 1.7 is being used to reduce the levy or the local share, so that when the tax bills go out, that's where you see the increase or decrease in your tax bill. Is by in this particular year, we're proposing that we reduce the levy by $900 and some thousand. So on the expenditure component side, I guess you could just jump back there. So that boils down to our total revenues, including the use of $1.7 million in fund balance, is $84,115,075. And that takes you to the next slide, which is our expenditure component budget. For administrative, it's $7.2 million. Our capital is $12.8 million. Our program budget proposal is $64 million and change, like $63,000 is change. But so our total expenditure component is also $84,115,075. So it's a 2% increase in expenditure, which is very small for a school district our size. 2% increase in this budget. And also a 2% increase in our revenues, supported by the use of some fund balance that we have. So you can see that our total operating budget proposal for next year is $84,115,075. So this is the slide everyone always waits for and wonders, what's the impact on me? What's the local share? What can we expect? How can we do all these things, and what's the cost to an average homeowner? So the tax on a $100,000 home in our current year was proposed or anticipated to be $1,427.27. This budget shows a 0% tax increase. So on a $100,000 home, a school district tax bill for 18-19 is anticipated, just remember there's always some flexibility when the numbers roll out, of $1,427.27. So there's propositions on the ballot. When you get to the ballot, you're going to be asked, should the board adopt a budget for the Suba City School District in the amount of $84,115,075 for the fiscal year commencing on July 1 of 2018. The next proposition is 2, and it's a bond resolution really, giving the district permission to continue our cyclical replacement of our bus fleet with the purchase of a variety of buses, 6 buses, some 66 passengers, some 34 passenger minivan, and I'm just kind of summarizing this, but that's what the actual proposition looks like. Can we bond for the purchase of buses to continue to improve our fleet?
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
It kind of goes back quite a ways into to your slides, to your different departments, but vehicles for the building and grounds department. I remember last year we had maybe four or five different vehicles.
Yeah.
And a couple of those got taken out of the budget. We decided not to purchase them. And I don't see them back in the budget, so are we just deciding we don't need those vehicles now, or?
I can answer that, Nancy.
I can. The board, a couple meetings ago, allowed the transfer of some funds for a box truck for food service and for a few other additional buildings and ground vehicles. So we are going to get them out of this year's budget.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's 300,000 that we moved
That's right.
from.
Correct.
And to be able to replace those, along with the replacement that we budgeted for 17, 18 in those.
All right.
And that came from fund balance.
Yeah.
Trying to
Thank you.
make that, so we bought it. I forgot about that because we were so wrapped up in this budget. And Proposition 3 is to support, as required, the Oswego City School District Public Library and to support such library, as well as I believe there's a ballot for some library board members on that proposition as well. This is a shortened version of what the actual proposition looks like. So voting places are similar to last year, and it's really important that we continue to communicate this because people still are getting confused about where to vote. For District 1, which is Ward 10, Town of Scriba and Town of Valmy, which I refer to as East Side out of town. That's where they vote at the Scriba Fire Station. East Side in town, which is Ward 2, 4, and 6, vote at St. Paul's Rectory Hall. West Side in town, vote at Elam Grace, and that's the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th wards. And West Side out of town, which is services the town of Veneto, the town of Oswego, vote at the Oswego Town Hall. And that's the same as last year. Next up, in 2 weeks, we have the public hearing where we present the same budget to the public, and the public has an opportunity to share their opinions and ask questions. And then also, that leads us to May 15th, which is the school budget public vote in the 4 locations that we just described.
Dean, tonight the board's going to vote to approve a budget.
Yes,
But basically, that's a number we're to approve.
that's right.
If down the road, say after the public hearing, or any time before the final vote, we can move money around within that budget.
That's correct.
So if we decide we want to take stuff out or put stuff in, as long
Move
as
things
we
around.
stay within that number that we approved tonight, we can do that.
Yes, within the parameters of the law. Sometimes it requires a transfer that the board it would be on an agenda and the board would approve a transfer. But yes, theoretically, in general statement, that's true.
It's just always strange to me that the board adopts the budget and then we have the public hearing afterwards.
And now,
I know that's by law, but.
everybody always thinks that's odd, and it is odd.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would like to have the public hearing and hear what the public thinks before we adopt.
right, so that we can, just to your question, is that can we move stuff
Right.
around if we have a pump?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons that we do multiple budget presentations and component
Well, they're well
parts.
attended.
And right, right. Okay.
Are we gonna get a airplane to write in the sky where the voting places are, because some people get confused?
We do it in an automated message. It'll be in the budget newsletter. It'll be on WBUC. I'll do an interview with Dane.
On the website.
We'll blast it
Website,
on the
Facebook,
website.
on the
It'll be on
newspaper.
Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tattoo it on my left arm.
And the press, the press.
And the press will have it.
And the press will have it.
Dean, will the PowerPoint be
Everybody tell
available
your
on the
friends.
website
Yeah,
tomorrow?
it'll be up tomorrow.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Yeah. How many was that?
Too many. Brandon's.
For the coffee.
Oh.
Zipped up.
Go get him one of those. Sitting between two of them.
Next on the agenda, excuse me, Dr. Bui, is there any other items for the superintendent's report?
I think I need to say something about Michelle. Certainly, there's been so much said about her, but this has been a really, really difficult week for our school community. I want to thank Pat Wallace and certainly Rhonda. Those are the things that happen in leadership that you don't anticipate, but you have to be prepared for. And Pat Wallace and in particular Rhonda really stepped up, and you learn how to be a leader in situations like that when it happens. There's no training for losing a beloved active staff member in your district. I learned it in my first year as superintendent with the loss of 2 Oswego High School students in 1 year. You just learn, you have to learn to just do the right thing, and you have to follow your gut and your heart and make decisions on the fly that are in the best interest of students and staff. That's what they did, that's what I tried to do, and we respected her above and beyond what I think anybody could expect.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. A, minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of April 3rd, 2018. Minutes of the special Board of Education meeting of April 10th, 2018, budget workshop. Minutes of the special Board of Education meeting of April 12th, 2018, budget workshop. D, special education report. E, treasurer's consolidated report, monthly budget status report, and Oswego City School District financial report, March 2018. F, fund balance projection, March 2018. G, monthly budgetary transfer report, March 2018. H, extra classroom activities fund report, Oswego Middle School, March 2018. I, extra classroom activities fund report, Oswego High School, March 2018. Any questions? Ryan?
So, it's the same question I'm bringing up, but it just puzzles me. Class of 2018, they had $32,780 in their account. There's 2 months left to school. We're comfortable with it. I guess what I'm getting at is with that class that's worked very hard. We have one of them on our board here today that's worked very hard on that. I just want to be sure we understand, they understand that, you know, that's their money. And is that bills, or are we talking they're going to have quite a bit left when this is all said and done?
It's hard to tell until they spend it down, what they're gonna have left over.
What is it, what do they have to spend it on?
What's that?
Senior dinner dance.
So there's a number of activities, go ahead, Sasha.
Senior picnic, some of the cap and gowns, like, that's what we were told, that like some of it would be like spended on. I'm not sure how much would go to each, but that's what we were.
So the senior dinner dance is at the Foundry, and it's DJ and dinner, and tickets are usually $10 or $15, which does not come anywhere close to covering the cost of the event. Same with the senior picnic. They head out to Seabreeze. Again, tickets are usually $10 or $15, but it's open to any senior who wants to go, regardless of whether they can afford the reduced ticket price. There are some regular bills at the end of the year for caps and gowns that the senior class does supplement for some students. There's a portion of the money that is still the rollover from the JetBlue settlement, so there's always about $15,000 in there that rolls forward.
How much was it amount?
15.
It's somewhere around 15.
You've explained this before.
Yeah.
But tell me again, what's the JetBlue service?
So there was, the senior trip was booked on, I want to say it might be Southwest, but there was another.
The airline.
It was an airline that filed bankruptcy, and no flights. They had the majority of the payments made for the airfare, which is a large portion of the money that the kids have either raised or paid. And Bill Ranieri did an interview for Channel 9 News because they were covering the story, and JetBlue contacted him and said, we will provide airfare for your trip.
Pro bono.
Pro bono.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you get any money back in the future. If you get money back in the future, save it in case something like this ever happens again. So there's a fair amount of their $32,000 that is that, we call it the JetBlue money. It
Yeah.
just always rolls forward.
For that emergency
For-
kind of situation
It's an
scenario.
emergency
Maybe their
stash.
JetBlue won't do that for us
Right,
next time.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Brian, to answer your question, the class is asked if they would ever like to make any charitable contributions. We've had classes donate money towards, actually, if you see the electronic sign that's out in front, there's a plaque at the bottom that says,
2006.
Yeah, 2006. So they make significant donations, and then when they have remaining money, because at the end of the day, it's the class's money to make a decision about what they'd like to do with it, they tend to vote to roll the balance over to the incoming senior class. For all of those years where there's lots of issues, like Friday, the JV show was wonderful, Saturday, we ended up canceling because of the pending ice storm. That is a significant fundraiser for the junior class. Ty and Mary Koskowski talked to Pat Wallace. They've had 2 other events canceled this year for a variety of reasons. And because of that, the incoming senior class, their money might be a little tight. So there's always that idea that each class kind of takes care of the next incoming, but certainly it is their discussion to have with Mrs. Palmitesso if there are some decisions they'd like to make.
That's what I want to make sure that they
Yeah.
understand that, because if I do the math quickly and take that 32,000, roughly take all that 15 out, you still have almost 18.
Yeah.
And I hear everything you're saying, but I don't see it coming anywhere close to that. And
Right.
I understand rolling it, but I just want to make sure that class I know for particular, because
They've
I have a
been
kid in
very
that class.
active.
They've been very they've worked really hard. And, you know, you look and you think, and I hate to say in July, we should have done this, type things. So I just want to make sure that they're being advised that, that they work, together.
Absolutely. Do they know, like, is there a specific deadline? I mean, to your point, like, do they know that by such and such date, they need to have decided if they're gonna roll the money forward, or, because I know they're busy at the end of the year, and
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
it does happen that they just
Yeah.
get caught up and they forget. I mean, I
No,
don't know.
it's part of Tammy Palmitesso's process.
Okay.
She's been the advisor for a long time, and she has meetings with the officers and with the class. She seeks ideas if there's something that they would like to do in a charitable way, if there's donations to be made. From year to year, depending on how large the balance is, that determines the cost of the senior picnic tickets and the senior dinner dance tickets. But I will certainly convey those concerns and make sure that she's having those, very clear discussions with the group so they can make an informed decision.
Any other questions? All in favor? Or could I have a motion, please?
Move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the Board of Education approval of the 2018-19 Oswego City School District budget. Be it resolved that the Board of Education adopt the proposed 2018-19 Oswego City School District budget in the amount of $84,115,075 for the fiscal year commencing of July 1st, 2018. Any discussion? All in favor? Or motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay,
Next is,
I was wishing we had had a roll call, but I just want to say publicly that I am not really comfortable with the 0%. But I have to weigh that also against other things, and one of which is if the budget goes down and we go to contingency, it would hurt the taxpayers and especially the kids far more. So reluctantly, I will support the 0%, but I just am not comfortable with it.
okay, any other comments?
That's probably, when you asked for a discussion, that's probably when we should have spoke up, but we didn't, so let me throw my 2 cents in too. As board members, one of the fine line that we walk is between balance, being fiscally responsible to the community and still providing program and equipment and so forth, maintaining facilities to our students and staff. I sat here several years ago and went through some of these 0% increases, and it came back to bite us in the butt later on. I'm fearful that can happen again. I think a lot of things have changed since then. I think our superintendent is pretty more involved as far as being responsible and fiscally responsible. I think the administrative staff has done a great job with this budget. We brought back, I think, 8 or 9 items that were cut back 2 years ago when we went through that difficulty, and they're back. So I support this budget, and like Tom, I'm a little leery, but I think with the team we've got together, administratively, I think that we'll be okay. So I'm supportive.
Any other comments at this time? Next on the agenda is B, approval of Proposition 1 for the May 15, 2018 vote. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the following language to appear as Proposition 1 for the budget vote and election to be held May 15, 2018. Shall the Board of Education adopt a budget for the Oswego City School District in the amount of $84,115,075 for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2018. Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? C, approval of Proposition 3, library proposition. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the following language to appear as Proposition number 3 for the budget vote and election to be held May 16, 2018, May 15, 2018. Shall the annual proposition be approved authorizing the annual appropriation for $1,299,199 to operate the Oswego City School District Public Library and to support and maintain such library, which sums shall be raised annually by tax upon the taxable property of the Oswego City School District until changed by further vote of a majority vote of the electors of the Oswego City School District and shall be levied and collected yearly as are other general taxes. Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda is curriculum, and there's no items tonight from curriculum, so we will move to personnel with Dr. Smith.
A, professional retirement. Upon the presentation and recommendation of Dr. Bui, Superintendent of Schools, and that the Board of Education will accept the following personnel items as followed. Professional retirement, Roger Sprague, Kingsford Park School. Whereas Roger Sprague has served the students and staff of this school district as an elementary teacher for the period September 1st, 1994 to the present, and has been a most responsible, conscientious, and dedicated staff member in service to the school district. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Education of the Oswego City School District hereby acknowledge the faithful service of Mr. Sprague upon accepting his resignation for the purpose of retirement effective July 1st, 2018, and we express our grateful appreciation to him.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second, I'm sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
B, professional retirement. We previously brought Janet Knight's retirement from Minetto, but we just wanted to make a notation that we were missing a year. She actually started with us on September 1st, 1978 as a regular sub that year, and so we wanted to just make the notation and give her that credit.
Good.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
C, leave of absence for Emily Kilmer, who's a teaching assistant at the Oswego High School. She is requesting a leave of absence for 1 year for a family rearing purpose.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
D, professional staff recommendation. Brianna Marquardt, a teaching assistant, level 1 at the high school, and Linda Murdoch, a teaching assistant, level 1 at Layton Elementary. Effective previous dates, because we go by when their teaching certificate for teaching assistant was issued, and their tenure dates as listed.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
E, professional staff recommendation. Regular substitutes, Karen Green at FPS and Judy Mooney at Riley. Both of these teachers have actually been in the position since the start of the second semester. When they were first hired, sometimes we don't always know, so they're hired as a long-term sub. But when the extension goes to cover one full semester, then we put them forward to be regular subs because their pay changes significantly.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
F, extra compensatory recommendation. At the Oswego Middle School, a debate club advisor, Allison Anderson. Her stipend is 0 because this will be the pilot year.
Move it.
Any questions?
And this is something that will go in effect next year?
Yeah, for next school
Okay.
year.
All right,
Do
'cause
we
I remember
anticipate?
talking about that, but.
Yeah, do we anticipate a cost associated with that next year?
Not for the 18-19 school year, that's actually, a pilot year always allows the administrator to kind of gauge interest and then be able to make an informed decision the following year when you're looking at clubs, which ones run, which ones have activity.
Right.
Yeah, see if you have this.
This
I
one-
think that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
she brought this one forward as kind of a replacement for for two other clubs that had kind of gone dormant.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they, we have a number of clubs on the books that we don't always run year to year because student interest waxes and wanes.
Right, you never know what you're gonna do.
So there's a group of kids who are interested in this. Sometimes it's student-driven, they bring the club ideas to us,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's a teacher teaching a class thinking, boy, this would be a great idea.
Yeah, and we're just offering the outlet for those
Yeah.
particular, so it's great.
Motion, please.
Move it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
G, extra compensatory recommendations for the high school and middle school counseling staff for their summer work. When I looked at the attachments earlier, I realized that the middle school attachment is actually a little further down in Cindy Zuber's. So just in case you were looking for that, and the high schools is in the right spot in G.
Any questions?
Now, refresh my memory, was this something that was cut before?
So the
or no?
counselors have
Or
always
part
had.
of it was, or? I
Yeah,
don't
part of
remember
it.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
you
reduced that
reduced
2 years,
days.
2 years ago, right? We
Right.
reduced the number of
Just said-
days and then.
Right.
Yeah.
So is this the same amount that they had last year, or is this an
This-
increase from what they had last year?
This is the same amount that they had last year. We increased it the previous year because the reduction the year before that
By
was
half.
a little too
It
severe.
was one of those really deep cuts.
Yeah.
and then we
Yeah.
brought
So
it
They
then-
weren't getting all of the work done, so we went up a little bit, and then we kind of settled on this number last year, and this is tight, but it seems doable.
So they feel comfortable with being able to get their work done?
Could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
H, extracurricular volunteer recommendation for girls lacrosse goalie coach Karen DeNatalie.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I, support staff recommendation, a leave of absence for Joyce Orta from school monitor part-time at the middle school. She's serving a probationary period and a second title, school bus monitor, that you approved a meeting or two ago.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
J, support staff recommendation, Cindy Zuber as a clerk for the middle school. This is part of the middle school's counseling work. Cindy assists the counselors with their work over the summer, and Mary Beth actually puts it forward to pay for out of a middle school line.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second, Tom? Was that you, Tom?
Yep.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
K, support staff recommendation for permanent appointment, Rhonda Favada, school bus driver at Transportation, Shannon Germain, teacher aide part-time at Minetto, and Kelly Sinoski, teacher aide part-time at Fitchie Park School.
Questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And L are substitute and temporary employee recommendations.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda tonight is finance with Nancy Squires.
A is for the board to accept a donation that Amy Armet procured from Donors Choose for Frederick Layton School in the amount of $866.37 for student books, goodie bags, and craft projects.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
B is for the board to accept a donation from the Community Partnership for Children in the amount of $4,409.15. I had a woman come in on April the 11th. Her name was Laura Suchnicki. She was the founder of this organization. It started about 10 to 15 years ago. And they used to raise money by having dances at the middle school for community, for low-income families to use for their children, for clothes or gas cards if they had to go to the hospital or whatever. And the person who was spearheading that at the middle school had left, so they lost their main source of organizing. So they had money left over, and she said since the money was raised here, the money should come back here. So she had requested the money to be used by the school nurses. She was confident that the nurses would know where the most needs were.
Yeah, it was.
So, and she said it should be spread evenly throughout the district. So, great donation.
Thank you.
So this will be shared in all the buildings?
All buildings.
So, right, $4,000 would be divided by 4 or 7?
Not necessarily. She was hoping that it could be used for a few years and not to be used all at once. But she was putting her faith that the nurses would know where the most need was. But she didn't want it all used at one building.
How does that money slide into the nurse's pocketbook?
Well, that's a good question. I had this discussion with her as well.
It doesn't.
So we're going to put it in a trust and agency account
There'll be a new motion.
so that it can be used year after year if they have to. All the nursing requests are going to go to the team leader, Christina Chamberlain, and she's going to make sure that the nurses' requests are handled.
I think that's a great donation. I think it's too bad they can't rejuvenate the process to produce more money for coming years. I think so, and
I have a
there's
question.
definite need there.
Did she indicate, is this the same group that was originally called Children's Board?
No, the
Is she-
children's
No.
board still is in
Are they
existence,
still-
but she was involved with children's board.
That's what I thought. She was one of the
Yeah.
originators of
Yes, I
Children's
think that
Board.
she
So
probably
I thought
was.
maybe they changed their
No,
names.
No.
That's separate, okay.
Could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And the last donation is from the Shinneman Foundation to provide a one-book reading event, which provides 2,177 books at a value of $12,953.15. And this is for parent involvement with their students for reading.
It's a program called Read to Them, in which every student, K-6 in the district, will get a book to take home to read with their family. It's supposed to increase the partnership of parent and child reading. So each building, it's going to start April 24. And then the teachers have some small activities they can do with the books after, and there'll be a schedule put out. But then May 25th is a culminating activity in the schools, all 5 buildings, elementary buildings, after they finish reading the book. So it's a kind of a neat idea.
Kind of like a
Yeah.
community reading.
That's great.
And this is the book, sorry, The World According to Humphrey is the book. They're all.
So everybody's reading the
every
same
student-
book.
Yeah,
Oh.
everybody's reading the same
Cool.
book. Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
Great program.
Huh, I like it.
Could I have a motion, please? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda is items from board members. Would any board members have any items tonight?
I'd just like to say quick, kind of in talking about the budget as Tom and Sam both reflected, I think that I think it was a great process. I think we had a lot of really great group discussions and brought a lot of things to the table. I think, you know, at the forefront, obviously, were our thoughts of our students and our staff and the needs that everybody, you know, brought to the table and said. And then the other portion that I think we really looked long and hard at was the voice of the community and, you know, the messages that we were getting. And I think that we weighed all of the pros and cons of making the decisions that we did, very well thought out and collectively. And, you know, to Sam's point with the historical time period where there was a zero, certainly that was a concern for all of us as we sat here and made that decision. But I think we have a vision that's bigger than just today for our district, and really that's what we were looking at, and trying to be fiscally responsible, also, you know, providing what we could for our students and our staff, and also listening to our taxpayers. So I think it was a culmination of all
Try and
of
create
the-
a confidence with the community that
Exactly.
they let us know how they felt.
Yeah, so I think that was, I think how we all felt walking out. It was some difficult decisions, but I think that the outcome will benefit everybody.
In compliments to the current administration that's in over the last few years,
Absolutely.
they have set us up in a position with the small incremental tax increases over the few years for us to be able to sit, collaborate.
To be able to make that choice.
To be able to make that
Yeah.
choice and say that we can bring 0% to the public. So compliments to them, a lot of hard work that's gone into it. They've set us up in a position, again, to Amy's point, we have future things that we want to do and we want to push towards. And this is an example of us working together and listening as a whole. It's pretty great when you look at being able to add positions, being able to add different programs, and still be able to have the ability to not push that cost out and be able to control the budget. So again, I think it's a compliment to current administration to even put us in a position to be able to have that conversation.
Thank you.
I just wanted to echo too, compliments to Dean and all of you for handling this past week too, because, you know, having 4 kids in the district and 2 of them who were very close in the situation, I think you guys did a really good job. I think you really you pushed all the right buttons. I mean, when we talk about feedback you hear in the community, I think, you know, well done. You know, when you hear people complain about things or talk about things, I think you guys handled a really hard situation and with class. I think it was
And the respect that was deserved.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I just wanted to echo that you guys did a great job. Thank you for that. Including your singing, that was impressive. I mean, when I joke with them, I say, the singing, nothing, the voice, but doing it under circumstances, I mean, that's hard.
Yeah.
Any other items from the board?
I booked up fast, so as soon as you know.
Can I strike that?
Yeah, we probably should have wrapped up the meeting before I said that.
Could I have a motion, please, to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We may adjourn.